So welcome to the GMC April member meeting. My name is Peggy Kelsey. I have the privilege of being the chair of the GMC. I would first like to take the opportunity to welcome new GMC members to today's meeting and into our membership. As I call your name, I'll ask you just to stand or wave your hand or whatever you'd like to do. Leif Elsmo, Centers for Independence. There's Leif. Clarence Johnson, Wisconsin Community Services. Tracy Johnson, CARW, which is Commercial Association of Realtors, Wisconsin. And Chuck Pruitt, AV Data. Welcome to all of you. We're honored you've chosen to share your leadership with us and to help us to make Milwaukee the best place to live, learn, work, play, and stay for all. While we know this is no easy feat, having a defined plan continually brings us closer to that goal. Already, our strategic plan has led us to identify opportunities and challenges, forge new solutions, and see greater results. To this point, I would like to address the MPS referendum that passed on April 2nd. As you know, the GMC publicly stated we could not support the referendum. We took this action because we wholeheartedly support the youth of our community, Milwaukee's future. The very thin margin by which Milwaukee's voters approved the MPS referendum is evidence of the paramount need to strengthen outcomes and establish greater accountability within MPS. Now that Milwaukee voters have decided to commit an extra $252 million taxpayer-supported dollars to MPS, it is more important than ever for the GMC and others in our community to ensure we do not simply preserve the very unacceptable status quo. Working together, we must insist on solutions that improve outcomes for our kids. Regardless of what side one took regarding this referendum, we sincerely hope everyone can agree the current results are unacceptable and indefensible, and we must work together to achieve something better. You can rest assured we will make that a priority area of focus for the GMC's Education Committee. A stronger future for Milwaukee depends on it. And now, I would like to focus our attention on today and this incredible space. Thank you to Right Height for investing in Milwaukee and for hosting the GMC at your new headquarters here in Walker's Point. Right Height began construction on this facility during the peak of COVID in 2020. I welcome fellow GMC member Mike White, chairman of Right Height, and Right Height CEO Michaela White-Bomheck to share the story.
I think I'm loud enough to go mic-less. Can everyone hear me? All right, we're going to go with that.
She's going mic-less with me too.
First of all, I just want to say welcome to Right Height. We are absolutely thrilled to have each of you here and get to experience our new headquarters. We sure hope you like it as much as we have. We've really enjoyed being downtown. And I understand this is the first corporate venue for you guys, so we're honored to be your hosts. Thanks for coming today. My name is Michaela, so I'm born and raised in Milwaukee, and I'm pretty darn passionate about this whole Right Height place. I've been really fortunate to be here the past decade as an employee, and absolutely love it. We've got a wonderful team. I really believe that being a family-held company is a game changer for us because it allows us to think long-term. And as I think of the challenge and opportunity ahead of myself and our leadership team, I think a big part of that is being able to think strategically about how digital fits into our solutions and how we're going to use that to build a competitive moat going forward. And being long-term minded and that family-held capability of not having to think quarter to quarter, I think really gives us the opportunity to do that in a creative way. So I'm super excited about the business going forward and the competitive advantage that can create. And as you think about that talent, that had a lot to do with how we thought about this headquarters project. So, we used to be in Brown Deer and really had 5 locations in the Milwaukee area. And as you think of recruiting, Brown Deer is north. As we looked at different areas to relocate, it really became how do we get the most talent as we think of going after our competitive advantages as a company, and how are we going to recruit and retain people that help us accomplish our goals. And we really felt like downtown Milwaukee gave us the best odds of that because you could pull from every direction, because of all the amenities we could provide, and because of the access to people we thought we could bring from it. So really an investment that's paid off in spades so far, and hopefully a commitment to Milwaukee that Right Height plans to invest and stay in Milwaukee for the long term. We also are recently working on community engagement. So we are working on building a foundation that directly ties to our corporate strategic plan, and that'll have community pillars. We're working now to get alignment on our leadership team with those community pillars. And then that'll be dispersed throughout the company and to the community over time. So really look forward to sharing that with each of you. Right Height really prides itself on giving back, but we tend to try and be a little quiet about it. So it'll be neat to use it to spearhead our strategic plan forward as well. It's an exciting time for Right Height, for Milwaukee, and I wanted to say thank you to each of you for everything you do in the GMC to forward Milwaukee and to keep the city going in the right direction. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. We're proud to sponsor you here today, and I echo everything Michaela just said, frankly, and I would tell you that originally for the last 4 decades or so up in Brown Deer, I tried to keep Right Height's head kind of down. There was no real reason to not do so, and obviously we went a different direction with this facility, and we have a whole lot of employees that have been with us a long time. And because of that, there are a lot of retirements coming up. And we have to replace a significant share of our people. And this allows us to make do with millennials and Zs and what have you that we'll be hiring, who are looking to have a occupation downtown in a walking kind of a situation. I think we were really lucky to get this kind of acreage this close to the center of downtown, and we are able this way with the head count all in one place. We can provide amenities like lunch and parking and some of the frills that you find around the different facility here. So that was one of our big reasons for doing this. Of course, the number one reason was putting our best face forward for customers. And I think you'll find if you get a chance to look around across the street, we have a facility that emphasizes all of our different product lines and displayed in a way that no other company has done, which we're really proud of as well. So thank you again for being here, and if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
I wasn't going to ask you a question.
You're a good man.
Thank you to Mike and Michaela, and thank you to Right Height for hosting us today. I think some of you may also know that the White family and Six Sibs has not only made this significant investment here, but also they now own the building that we formerly knew as the Global Water Center, so we're tenants as well. There was another building just down the road here, about 8 stories or something like that came down over the last few months. So their investment is not just in this building, but truly in the neighborhood and in the community. And for that, we truly appreciate the work that you have done. I met on the way in today Leah Fiasca, a former GMC employee who many of you know, who is a relatively new employee here at Right Height and working on their community engagement and involvement. And again, I think we can endorse the work that she has done and what Right Height is doing in the community. So thanks very much. And just one other thing about where we are today. So I'm old enough and my tenure in the community goes back long enough that I remember coming to work in the very early days of the Tom Barrett administration. In fact, right when Tom was first elected, where you had right across the river from us, the old asphalt plant for the city, which was here, and now is the site of the Harley-Davidson Museum. Initially, the idea was that the Global Water Center was going to spill out into a business park here, and because of the way things, I think, changed in the economy globally, that's not what happened. But I think we can all agree that what eventually transpired on this site is significant for the community, significant for the city and the region. So, a lot of what we talk about and what we think about, we grapple with as a community is, where are we now and where are we going? That's going to be part of the discussion today. But this is all evidence about a community that invests in itself and grows. And so, again, we truly appreciate that. Before we get on to the topic today, we have one other guest speaker who I have the pleasure of introducing. The United Performing Arts Fund has been a leader in arts and culture in Milwaukee for nearly 60 years. Since 1967, the work of UPAF has been instrumental in allowing arts groups to focus less on fundraising and more on what they do best, creating, performing, educating, and inspiring. And we have Brent Tischler from Old National Bank to talk a little bit about UPAF. Brent?
Thanks, Joel, and thanks, Mike and Michaela, for hosting us at your amazing, beautiful headquarters. Again, as Joel said, my name is Brent Tischler. I'm the CEO of the Community Bank at Old National. I've been a member of the United Performing Arts Fund now for 5 years. I currently serve as treasurer and member of the executive committee. I'm joined today in the room by several past co-chairs of the campaign, current and former board members, and several staff. If you guys could just raise your hands, please. Thank you. Just appreciate your past and ongoing commitment to the arts as well. Well, these 14 amazing organizations represent the UPAF member groups that provide our community with entertainment excellence. They inspire us, they challenge us, they bring us together, they enrich our lives. When I moved from Chicago to Milwaukee 16 years ago, the thing we thought we'd missed the most about Chicago was the performing arts. It turns out it's our favorite thing about living in Milwaukee. Our twins grew up at First Stage, incredible arts education, inspired them to be creative, inspired them to take risks, helped build their confidence. Like many of you, my wife and I are season ticket holders to several performing arts groups in Milwaukee. We just think it's an invaluable part of our lives here. Beyond the personal impact, the performing arts are a powerful economic engine in Milwaukee. Tourism, revenue, jobs growth. You can see some of the stats on the screen here. When people see a show, they eat at restaurants, they pay for parking, they stay overnight in hotels. It has just a significant impact, as you can see, on Southeast Wisconsin. We believe vibrant and thriving performing arts are essential. It provides a way for people to connect, it provides people with education, and frankly, it gets people downtown. Arts is good for business. Strong arts scene helps attract a dynamic workforce to Southeast Wisconsin. I can speak for my job at Old National Bank. When I bring people into Milwaukee from outside our area, I lead with the performing arts, which I know has impressed a lot of people that we brought here. The United Performing Arts Fund plays a critical role in ensuring we have a thriving and vibrant performing arts sector, in addition to providing ongoing operational support, which is really critical for our member groups. UPAF provides significant support for large-scale capital projects that support our patron experiences. UPAF, as some of you may know, has earned a Charity Navigator 4-star rating year over year over year, which demonstrates we're just really good stewards of our donor dollars. And I'm here to ask for your help today, here to ask for your support. The impact that UPAth has on the performing arts sector is not possible without the support from people in the Tremar business community. Our 57th annual UPAth campaign is live. It's underway. It's going through the end of August. We are pleased to share that over half of the GMC members are donors to UPAth. Nearly half host a workplace giving campaign. And there's a number of ways for you all to get involved. You can be a donor, you can be a sponsor, and again, you can host a workplace giving campaign. So there's some information at your tables. Again, we've got a lot of staff in the room here. Christine, our development staff, is here. We'd ask you to reach out, and thanks, Joel, for the opportunity, and thanks for your support for UPAth and the performing arts.
Thank you, Brent. And as someone who also lives in this community, has raised a family in this community, I think we all can attest to the richness that the performing arts brings to this. And I have no doubt, I think we all have no doubt, that this community, which continually kind of punches above its fighting weight when it comes to support philanthropically, will do the same for the UPAth campaign this year. So I just want to, I'm going to make just a couple comments on a few other things before we get to the meat of our discussion today. And just a little follow-on to what Peggy discussed about the Milwaukee Public Schools referendum that passed just a week ago. We went out and we solicited feedback from the membership, not to do anything publicly, but in order to just inform our thinking on this issue. And the thing that was, to me, and to those of us and the board that had discussion around this, that was most telling about that, or most striking in some ways, was when we asked the question, if this referendum passes, if MPS gets another $252 million annually to go into the public schools, do you believe that things are going to change in the next 5 years? Do you think that outcomes are going to change for students in the next 5 years? And overwhelmingly, even more overwhelmingly than would you support this or would you oppose this? And I think there was significant opposition to this amongst our membership, but even more, there were people who were less inclined to believe that outcomes were going to change with another $250 million. That's our challenge in the community, is now that this has passed, the community has said that that they want to invest more public money into our public education system, which I think we can all support. But what we need to make sure is that that perception and that reality that things aren't or can't change is something that we can make sure that is a focus. So as recently, when we were about to put our public statement out around this, I had a conversation with the superintendent around what we were going to do after April 2nd, and we agreed that there were community stakeholders that needed to come together and have conversation around that. As recently as election night, I had some conversation with the mayor about his level of engagement and investment in this, because I think, again, this is not just a Milwaukee Public Schools issue, it's not just an issue around the people who work inside that administration building. It's everybody who has a commitment to education in the city of Milwaukee who has to kind of be part of changing that dialogue and, more importantly, changing the outcomes and the results moving forward. So we will invite many of you into that conversation, but the conversation certainly can't and doesn't end with the votes that took place last Tuesday night. I want to also provide one brief update on the higher education efforts. We did a meeting around HERA and the higher education efforts in Milwaukee in the last few months. Last week, as some of you may have seen, Senator Tammy Baldwin announced that the Higher Education Regional Alliance would receive $1.5 million to provide micro-credentials in areas like IT, healthcare, business, and education that's dedicated towards workforce upskilling. These are resources that can go directly into talent development and retention, something that Mike and Michaela were talking about here, and is something that is relevant to every one of us. We look forward to involving some of you in those efforts and working in partnership with HERA related to that higher education landscape. One other issue around education: in late March, President Isabel Cherney from Mount Mary hosted a group of GMC members and community stakeholders to move us forward on the issue of early learning and early childhood education. My GMC colleague Langston Verdeen and Vincent Lyles led that discussion and are going to continue to expand the group that's working to inform our civic partners and make us stronger and better advocates for change in that critical area of education as well. And we're going to welcome others to participate in those future conversations. About a dozen GMC members took part in a session with the mayor's chief of staff and his policy director 2 weeks ago as the kickoff to our fiscal strength and innovation efforts. The city is in the process of putting together its next proposed budget in the next few months, and we are going to have intentional, thoughtful conversations about how we can hold one another accountable for results. This was a great start to those efforts. We appreciate the ongoing work of David Gay and Betsy Brenner in leading that charge. With the mayor having been elected to a new 4-year term and an election behind us, the mayor and his team will also be involved in our discussions surrounding community safety moving forward. Our policy work with the Wisconsin Policy Forum is taking more direct shape. We also hope to have some voices from outside our community help contribute to our focus on these issues in the months to come. So please stay tuned there. Finally, and this is going to get us more directly into the issue that we're discussing today, our infrastructure task force is going to also take shape in the coming weeks. John Kissinger, who's going to be curating our conversation today, is helping co-chair those efforts around the built environment, which includes transportation, transit, but also important community steps related to housing and other resources. We'll join John in reaching out to some members with interest in these areas and some expertise to offer in the weeks to come. Now I'd like to introduce today's topic. Many of us in the community have been inspired by Mayor Johnson's aspiration and his goal of increasing our resident population. His ambition to grow to a city of 1 million residents gives us a target to work toward in the years to come. To make this progress, we need to move forward on many fronts, with infrastructure a central need for both the existing population and those who we want to attract to live and work here in Milwaukee. As our community identifies priority areas where we need to strengthen infrastructure, the GMC will play a role in highlighting these projects and encouraging members to weigh in. Milwaukee is addressing infrastructure as we grapple with the future of I-794. Serendipitously, I think you can look over your shoulder and see what we're talking about in our conversation today. Aspects of the 60-year-old roadway require repair or rebuilding, and a community dialogue is underway to determine how far we can or should go. Decisions will be made in the next year that will affect the current built environment and future development and growth. Today, we're aiming to provide you with an overview of the status of I-794 with a project overview from Bob Gutierrez, Southeast Director for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. Immediately following Bob, John Kissinger, GMC member and CEO of GRAFE, will curate a discussion amongst community partners with some differing viewpoints on key aspects of the project. We hope that today provides something that we unfortunately have too little of in our public discourse in modern society. Thoughtful discussion, consideration from people who are already friends before they discuss the topic, and continue to be friends once the dialogue is over. Taylor Corsland of Rethink 794 and Jim Plaisted of the Historic Third Ward Association will share their perspectives of the project options and how each could benefit from various aspects of a future Milwaukee. With that, let me introduce Bob Gutierrez to get things started.
Thank you so much. Yes, Roberto Bob Gutierrez, proud UWM graduate, took the U-bus to school and ended up being director for Southeast Wisconsin. A little bit about my background, over 30 years with the department. I've torn down freeways, Park East. I've rebuilt freeways, the north-south, the zoo. So it kind of gives you a little perspective that we're open to exploring all possibilities as shown on the first slide. Thank you on behalf of the Secretary of Department of Transportation, Craig Thompson. He was just on vacation, so he asked me to present this information, but what a terrific individual and open to everything that we can do for our stakeholders. And I'm just blown away about all the people in this room. It's just amazing assemblage of minds and talent, and I've worked with quite a few of you and continue to work with you on this one. So thank you. Yeah, let's talk about the lake interchange. So we're going to talk a little bit on the study overview, give you a little information on what we've done today on public information side, a little bit about the study and the process timeline, some concepts. We're going to take a look at those buckets, and then talk a little bit about what our next steps and how we move forward. So let's talk about the envelope for the lake interchange project, right? So here it is. Basically, you know, just west of the river there and over to the Hone Bridge. We are going to do this, and we are doing this with FHWA, the city of Milwaukee and Milwaukee County. So we are all in this together. A little bit about project needs. All right, everybody remember the Blues Brothers, right? So, and it comes to mind when they were, you know, racing off the bridge, and so that goes back to the 70s, and so the aging infrastructure that was left behind, we've got to attend to. But we also want to talk about community connectivity and what can we do with a reimagined 794, right? Some system linkages, some road deficiencies, bicycle and safety accommodations we want to take a look at, and of course traffic safety. What have we done to date so far? So 2008 finished the Marquette interchange, and then the Hone Bridge, of course, in 2013 we reducked that. That'll be there for a while. We took a look at the Lakefront Gateway and provided some new linkages down there. But what are we talking about? We are talking about everything in the yellow there. So that's where we're at right now. So the lake interchange, right? Give you a perspective, give you something to think about. Almost 74,000 vehicles travel that every day. We see about 42,000 on the Hone Bridge, so coming back and forth. This slide does give you some numbers on the folks that are getting on and off at each of one of the access points also. Let's talk a little bit about pandemic, right? So the lowest line on there is 2020, so that's what happened during that pandemic, and we saw that traffic drop greatly, right? Pre-pandemic is the top one, the yellow line, 2018. Where we're at right now today, 2022, just below that and just above it during the PFP. So basically what we're trying to just illustrate is that we're back. People are back. People are driving the freeways. They are to the pre-pandemic levels. So our public involvement to date. So over 29,000 public comments have been submitted to our website and others. We've had elected official meetings. I've walked this corridor with the mayor, the county exec, and talked about their vision, as Joel had talked about, right? We've had over 50 stakeholders, and probably some of you have been part of that. We've had 4 advisory committee meetings, and we've got a couple coming up real soon here. We held 2 public involvement meetings. So August 1st and 2nd of 23. One was right downtown here. The other one was at Thomas More on the near south side. So over 800 people attended those meetings. It was an incredible crowd. So it really does affect a lot of people. 1,700 comment forms were submitted, and then 5,800 open-ended questions. And then we had post-it notes that people could just post. So we collected over 1,000 post-it notes there. What did we hear? You know, so 1,700 comments, responses, 1,200 from Milwaukee County, 100 or so beyond that. This kind of shows you the zip codes of where a lot of those comments are coming from. So the near south side, Bayview area, St. Francis, and then the near north side of Milwaukee towards the lake interchange there. So that's where most of the comments are coming from. Our study phase, so where are we today? So we're in the concept development and alternative analysis kind of stage. So we got a ways to go, right? So this is good. We want to hear and get feedback on what people like and need from this corridor. So study phase wise, we're nearly half done with the study phase part of the thing. You won't see construction until 27, 28, sometime down the line there. We've got concept groups. I call them buckets, right? So the no build, that's our, and then just leave it as it is, leave it deteriorate. Well, we're not going to do that. But replace in kind, that is one of our buckets. That's the $300 million price tag that you've been hearing about a little bit. So that's our base, right? You got to have a base. We got a couple freeway improvement alternatives that I'll be showing you, and then of course full transparency. We got the freeway removal option. That is available, and that's an option that we've been talking about. And I'll kind of show you that a little bit. We started off with quite a few different types of options, 9 concepts, but we're kind of whittling them down with each one of those buckets. But we want to keep the buckets up until it for the next public information meeting in the fall. So we want to make sure that those buckets are still available for people. But we need to whittle down. For instance, on the freeway improvement, actually on the freeway removal, the lift bridge has to stay, or we have to build a lift bridge at the Milwaukee River there. It would literally take an act of Congress to remove that waterway. So we need a lift bridge there. A couple other things with the removal option. That does take us nearly to 6th Street, very close to Marquette because of the grades. So that's part of that. And I'll talk a little bit about the freeway improvement options too. So replace in kind, just put it back, make it look like it is today. It has about 2.5 acres of developable land that's right across the street from the Couture. It's been used as a staging area. Then we have a couple freeway improvement concepts. This one has the ramps internally, so we actually keep a left off ramp, left on ramp. But all those other on ramps at different locations, Jackson and Van Buren, and those change within this concept. So the footprint skinnies up and provides quite a few more developable land. I think almost 4 acres in this concept. Well, and then this one really skinnies it up, and then provides right-hand on and off ramps, and this is about 6 acres of developable land there. Freeway removal, we're up to about 15 acres if we remove that. And Lafayette, you're in here, so Lafayette will talk to you about a little bit. If you have any questions on we've talked to the staff about developable land, and how you can do that. And you can see the green part, that is the lake bed. That you cannot develop within that area. So here's the freeway removal option, and I did talk about the Milwaukee River. We do have, and we'll need a lift bridge there, but it kind of gives you that concept of the caveat on the freeway removal, traffic diversion, right? We talked about that 74,000 vehicles every day. The city of Milwaukee has worked with us. They'd like to see Clybourne as a boulevard, preferably 2 lanes in each direction. That provides a lot of promise to people that want a walkable community. And that same concept is in every one of the alternatives also. So 2-way Clybourne all the way up and down, with sidewalks all the way up and down, and ability for people to use that. So again, connectivity and safety. Where we go from now, we're going to continue to look at the traffic operations of things, and we're doing quite a bit of study on what that traffic diversion means to the people on the grid, to the folks in the south and to the north. And because a 4-lane boulevard, Clybourne, is not going to take all that traffic. But doesn't mean that that traffic can't get off at different other areas and use the grid system to get in or out. Let's see. So we're going to hold our next public information meeting later on this fall. We will still have all the buckets, but we'll whittle down to a little bit more of what we hear from stakeholders, including this meeting. So that's it for me. So thank you.
All right, I think my mic is on. Okay, great. Hi, I'm John Kissinger. I am going to moderate today's conversation with Taylor and you. Before I do that, I did want to, Mike and Michaela, thank you so much for having us. This is just an unbelievable facility. It's the first time I've been here, and I know Bob mentioned Lafayette. I know DCD was very involved in this whole vision of the Reed Street Yard, so I wanted to congratulate them, and I also wanted to congratulate Kristen Dufek from Epstein U, and I think Epstein U was the architect of the project, if I had that right, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful facility. But we're here today to talk about, it took some vision to do this, about what our vision is for the future of 794. As Joel said, I can look out right now and see it. And joining us today are Jim Plaisted from the Historic Third Ward Association and Taylor Korsland from Rethink 94. I'll let them introduce themselves. And in fact, Taylor, why don't you start introduce yourself and talk about why you're passionate about this opportunity.
Do you mind if I go first?
Yeah. Oh, I guess Jim's going to go first.
Thanks, John. And I don't think I have this on. Try it. My name's Jim Plaisted. I'm the Executive Director of the Historic Third Ward Association, just to the north and east of our location here. I've been in community development and management, thank you, for about 25 years. Previous to the Third Ward, I was hired in 2017 by the Third Ward. Previous to that, I worked with the east side of Milwaukee, the East North Avenue Business Group, as well as the Village of Shorewood and their commercial district. I see my friend John over there. And also with the Wauwatosa Village. This is obviously, we're literally feet from this structure and have been since the beginning of time being the Third Ward. The association is going on 50 years. We just had our 48th annual meeting this week. And this is obviously tantamount to everything we do, whether it's access to our district, whether it's activity that is generated both north and south of the freeway into our district. It's very important. So I've just got a few slides just to highlight kind of I think for this purpose, it's a state of the state, if you will, of the Third Ward in relation to this conversation. So these are just some highlights of economic development right now in the Third Ward. The gist of it is we are on fire. Our property tax value growth in the last 10 years has gone up 30%. The number of businesses, we have over 450. We have residential units booming, as you can see from the high rise at 333. We have 1,800 today, and after 333 and Kading development, which is over by Summerfest, comes online, we'll be up to close to 2,500. Our public market, just backing up a little bit, we're in concert in managing the neighborhood with the Business Improvement District, the Taxing District, as well as the Milwaukee Public Market. Between the three of those, we are in charge of managing and promoting the district. So the public market, we're very proud to say they are over 2 million visits a year and have had 35% sales growth, not since the pandemic, but pre-pandemic. And it has been a steady incline since the mid-2010s. We've got a geofencing service, and according to that, we are up over 2019. So we're back as a neighborhood, 8.3 million visits in the last 12 months. Some of the new development that is online or coming, 333 Water, the Foxtown Landing Brewery development just north of the dog park, under the freeway. 321 Jefferson, which is the apartment building Robert Joseph built around a We Energy substation on St. Paul and Jefferson. Katy Development is the 258-unit building near Summerfest. The Huron, our friends across the street on Clybourne, Josh Jeffers development, and then nearby hotels that have popped up in that corridor in the last 5 years. And then I think just, again, for the purposes of this conversation, we have a lot of undeveloped land in or near the freeway, especially in the 3rd Ward. The Italian Community Center parking lot, Granger, Gagliano, and Tropicana. There's 3 owners of all those parking lots that are what you think might be behind Granger. Summerfest Lot P, and parking lots north of Clybourne. So there's a lot going on and a lot that could be pending in the coming years. And then I just wanted to do this to illustrate that we figured out how to deal with this, okay, with this deck being that perceived barrier between Easttown, downtown, and us. Both the downtown bid and our bid won an International Downtown Association award for its activation under the freeways, which include muralists that did the freeway piers, as well as lighting that you saw on the first slide. All to, again, further entertain and engage as you visit the 3rd Ward on foot or on bike. And then we've really hit a home run with the activation of Riverwalk Commons. We've made it into a music and event space, as well as somewhere the Bucks can play pickleball when they decide to. That's Taylor's favorite thing. We talked about the pickleball courts. And then last but not least, the dog park, which hopefully we're going to talk about a groundbreaking in the coming weeks. My friend Paul Schwartz, Executive Director of the bid, and Matt Dorner from downtown, hopefully are going to be announcing a groundbreaking on this great effort that they've been raising funds for the last 5 years. So with that, I think it's Tyler. Taylor, sorry.
Is this working? Okay. Yeah, thanks for having us, and thanks for having this discussion. I think it's a really important discussion to have. And so for the last year, our group has formed a volunteer effort to broaden the discussion about 794 and what could become of the city. My name is Taylor Corslin. I'm an architect in the city and resident in downtown. And so yeah, the discussion that we want to open up is, I think, broader than just the transportation issue that we hear a lot about, that the DOT is working to solve. And I think that's just half the question. The other half is, what do we want to become as a city in the next, several generations? And if we have these lofty goals of population growth and bringing businesses downtown, what does that look like in this area? Just to acknowledge a few of the people that have worked on this for the last year. We have Guard here, and I think Montavious is here as well. This is a volunteer group that is just passionate about urbanism and making the city better. So we started when the DOT released this number, about $300 million, and having that baseline of, having to address this infrastructure and is this the best we can do for this space? And so in the course of that time, we came up with a few renderings that I actually made, and you may have seen these in the papers, and looking at the activation that could possibly come about if we rethought this space and continued the growth of downtown in the 3rd Ward. We don't have far to look for some context in freeway removal. As was said, we removed one of the first urban freeways to be removed through a downtown. Milwaukee is often cited as one of the premier examples of a successful freeway removal, and that resulted in roughly $3 billion of development if you consider the space under the freeway and then those adjacent properties. And of course, a big part of that was the Deer District. But before the Park East was removed, there wasn't a lot of momentum in this area. And we see the opposite in the 794 corridor. There is a ton of momentum, as Jim said. And it's great. There's headquarters moving downtown. 30-plus story towers coming to the area of residential. People clearly want to be here. So we, again, looked at this space and looked at the 30 acres of land that the 794 east-west stretch takes up, and said, if this were replaced with a boulevard, a two-way boulevard along Clybourne Street, and traffic was dispersed throughout the city, what could this become? So, we just imagined an outdoor public market and pedestrian spaces and development of businesses and residential. We were, very motivated by the aspirations of the mayor's agenda towards 1 million people, and want to see this actually, be more than talked about, but actually, happen. So, looking at this, the freeway, we wanted to expand the scope of what the DOT was looking at, and ask them to evaluate, this connection between the downtown and the Third Ward, which are booming. And this is what we face today, and I think we can all agree that we can do better. So the DOT's plan, I think, is something that cities around the country would love to have a plan like this in place. This is an excellent boulevard conversion, and it disperses traffic throughout the downtown. We can get into that a little bit more, but a third of the traffic is estimated by the DOT to come to this corridor if it were removed, and then spread out amongst those streets. And what could Clybourne Street look like? Michigan Avenue in Chicago has 40,000 cars a day going down it, celebrated as a pedestrian shopping street. So I'll just conclude with this last rendering that we looked at, and how this could be imagined. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Taylor and Jim. So I have a few questions to ask. And I'll start out with, we know there's been a number of employers that have moved downtown in recent years, including Right Height and others. And what do you think is the biggest concern for them about removal of the 791st for people have to get to work, that you're talking about this great neighborhood? What do you think is the biggest concern? Is it going to be a net plus or a net minus for employers moving downtown? I'll let you start, Jim.
It's not something that's come up in conversation in the Third Ward with employers, but obviously this would increase commute times. I personally don't think that's a major issue, but I know some other corporate headquarters have commented. And I also just want to back up just a little bit, because I meant to say this initially. HCWA and the bid do not have a formal position on this project. We might, towards the end of the year, as DOT does some more due diligence, we have some more discussions. So a lot of these are my opinions in concert with my friend Paul Schwartz and Chair Ron Sanfilippo. So we haven't had a lot of conversations, Johnny, with employers. All spring, I know Global Investments just announced some 300 employees coming down to the former Doman property in Chicago and Jefferson. So that's exciting. And Software One moved down from Waukesha 2 years ago. Have not heard anything about that, John, within the community. Taylor, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because we've seen these headquarters moving downtown, making huge investments in this area, and so there's clearly that they're sending a clear intention that they are needing to attract the next generation of talent, and wanting to be in vibrant neighborhoods like the Third Ward that are providing these restaurants and activities for after work. So to keep that going, I think this presents a big opportunity, and you could imagine the companies that we could attract if that space along, between the river and the lake was opened up. So far, we've been able to only attract, businesses from regional relocations, and I think that with something like this, we could attract, companies that are considering Chicago or Minneapolis.
Okay, thank you. And staying on that, kind of on that same topic, is the generational decision a long-term impact of what we do here? And at a time when we're becoming more aware of the need to build a tax base in the city, you've talked about your vision with the developable land, but Jim, I'm interested in what you think in the third ward. You said you have you have other sites to be, that can still be developed. What do you think about this vision of the 16 acres or whatever it is of developable land?
It would certainly be prime real estate if it becomes available. I think our concern, as I tried to at least lay the groundwork for in this comment about business activity in the third ward, it's so robust, it's growing so fast that our concern is, and I've said this to Taylor and his group before, we've figured out how to work in this ecosystem, dealing with this deck literally feet from our neighborhood, feet from our major prize, the public market. We're very concerned about messing that up. And messing it up not in the long term, but in the short term. If we were talking about tearing down that major structure, if we were talking about rebuilding the grid system beneath it, and if we were talking about increased car traffic on third ward streets, that's a concern. Because we think, at least in a 5-year window, it will hurt the economic growth of that community. If it comes down in an ideal world, in a vacuum, it's a no-brainer. But unfortunately, we're not in a vacuum. And we have economic interests, both small and large, on our side of the freeway.
Taylor, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think, it's obviously a big opportunity, and with development comes the tax base. But I think that, the activation that you've done is tremendous and really brings people through that corridor, of having this freeway run above you. But, is that the best we can do for this space and to acknowledge the traffic? I think that of the DOT options, it's going to get removed at some point even if we choose to rebuild it, there's construction there. So, of course, business interruption is, a big deal. But what do we want to replace that with is a broader question, than 5 years. I get the business standpoint and the short term of we got to make this work. But I think with this opportunity, we need to think broader at generations or decades scale.
Now, public safety is an issue that a lot of people are concerned about, and I think Bob showed that about 2/3 of the people just drive through there rather than getting off. Is there a concern about, from a public safety standpoint, about people coming down into the city? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing, Jim?
Replacing with the grid system, just putting cars in
Yeah.
the grid. I mean, in general, that's fine. Again, philosophically, I don't have a problem with Taylor's group's position. Again, but I've got to deal with the reality of my constituents in the current environment. One thing that we're concerned about, John, in this impacting is, again, back to that traffic count that, again, DOT is working diligently on this year to try to project of that grid system that's got to handle the freeway. We've built this pedestrian-friendly environment in the third ward in the last 30 years, from Broadway to Milwaukee Street. We are currently working on Water Street. We're working with the city of Milwaukee. We're working with HNTB on potentially narrowing Water Street, narrowing it for traffic. The current sidewalks on Water Street are 8 feet. For contrast, Broadway is 18 feet. And we all know how much we like Broadway, especially perusing Broadway. So it's an unfriendly environment. It's an unsafe environment in your car because cars are speeding on those 2 lanes of traffic to get through that section of the third ward. So we're actually studying right now and hopefully engage the city on a project later this year about narrowing Water Street, bringing the sidewalks out anywhere from 5 to 8 feet further, getting it down to 1 lane in either direction, still allowing parking. Again, back to the ramifications of tearing it down. Water Street, we know, just being lay people here, will handle a lot more traffic if the freeway comes down, and our Water Street project and pedestrianizing that street will probably die. Something's got to give there. And it'll probably be our efforts on Water Street to bring Water Street into the comfortable pedestrian environment we enjoy in the rest of the world.
Taylor, what do you think? Is there more of an issue with public safety with dropping all these cars down into the city street grid?
Yeah, I think that the plan for the grid, would disperse traffic in a way that would be simpler and safer than it currently does. 794 is this, stretch that brings people directly to the center of downtown at interstate speeds, and then they're, dropped into this grid, and it creates unsafe environments on walking for pedestrians and such. I think that with, if you saw this removal, it would dissipate the traffic throughout, Michigan, Wisconsin, Clybourne, St. Paul, and, even when you're talking about Water Street and a conversion like that, which is great, if you did open up the Plankington route from downtown to the south, that could take some of that load off of the Third Ward. So I think the grid tends to absorb more than we think it can handle usually.
So I think you, Taylor, particularly have talked about a vision of a great new corridor on Clybourne Street. Jim, I know you've expressed some concern that sounds great in theory, but you've got a really good thing going now. I guess the question is, it's probably a long-term thing if you look at the Park East, it took quite a few years for that to be developed. Is that a concern of if we tear this down that we have a vacant corridor for a number of years?
Yes. I'm unfortunately old enough to remember the whole Park East process, was working for the city at the time when that was approved, and I've obviously observed it just in doing what I do. That is a concern because, and I've talked to a lot of real estate developers over the years, and the Park East was not a smooth land disposition process, especially pre-Bucks. So it's key what that plan is, right? If we get to an actual removal, boy, we got to sit down and we got to nail this, because we cannot put the obstacles in front of developer. Again, that I've heard. I've never talked to city or county officials about this, so, and I know some are in the room. But a lot of real estate people expressed frustration with me about that early process in the Park East, and that it did drag out of the chute. Bucks have hit a home run, obviously, and have energized a lot more investment. My concern would be, what if the Bucks didn't do that? We might still be dealing with a lot of available land. So I think I answered that. I rambled there for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot at play there. So, in 20 years, it's hard to think that, it took a while for the development of Park East to happen, but in 20 years it hit all of its development goals, and the Bucks were a big part of that, of course, but the outcome here, I think, is telling us that this is a very attractive space, and it would get filled in, I think, faster. The Park East went through the 2008 recession period. Maybe we come across that again, but we've learned a lot of lessons from the Park East process and how how that should work, and the Department of City Development would be one of the big players. I think one of the big flaws of the Park East situation was the ownership of the county and the city, and so we've our group has thought about whoever owns the space should give the development authority over to the Department of City Development, and then they control it and feed that money back to whoever's ownership of that land. That's one of the lessons learned. I think there's other activations that can happen in the meantime with that being developed too.
Okay, well, I think there's a lot more questions I'd like to ask, but I think we want to have some time here today for the group to get involved in a tabletop exercise. So I don't know if the questions are up right now, but we're gonna adjourn for a little bit here. And Will Taylor and Jim and I will spread out to some of the tables along with, there's other people here today from DOT and H&TB who are working for them. And we're gonna have a little bit of a discussion on this at the table, and then we're gonna come back and maybe have a little bit of open discussion among our group. So let's take about, what do we have in the agenda? Yeah, we wanna come back about 1:20 with Q&A, so we got about 10 minutes or so, 15.
One of the key questions we had was the level of traffic coming off of 794 versus the Park Freeway. Our guess was 3 times more off of 794.
Yes, he probably has more information.
So yes, you're right. I mean, this is not the Park East. It's 79,000 folks utilizing 794, and then 44,000 people coming from the south over the Hohn. And is it like 50% or 60% of that goes to the Marquette, right? So Park East was about 28,000 vehicles. So it kind of gives you a. And then in perspective, some of the major arterials, Blue Mountain Road, 27th Street, Highway 100, those run about anywhere between 25 and 30,000 vehicles. So, thanks.
You can keep doing this too if you want. I gave you the mic. Other questions? And one of the things we were discussing here, there are some questions I think that employers had, and even in our discussion at our table, that maybe we can amass and pass along to DOT. Some of these may well be the same things that you're doing in your consideration of these, but we have some questions that came up around, for a brand new employer here, and I think we can put some of those together and share those with you as you continue to just make sure that there's the right kind of community input here. And again, I hope everybody appreciates that what today is, and I saw, there, as I look around the room, there are stakeholders, employers, Summerfest represented here. If there's somebody who has a bigger impact from all of this than Summerfest and the World Festival Inc. grounds, I don't know who they are, but this is just an effort for all of us to get more informed and to understand better where the process is going, who some of the stakeholders are, and then you will make up your own opinions and contribute those to the ongoing conversation in the community. Any one or two more questions or comments that anybody has before we leave it to Peggy to wrap up with who's going to get the gift of the day? Okay. Before you do that, or as you come up, I just want to again say thank you to Michaela and Mike and to Right Height for this, and to welcome others to do the same. Yeah, please. This is great space. As Mike was saying, if you're a client or a customer or a technician, service person who works with Right Height, what they have here, I've had the ability to look at it, is pretty spectacular, but it's spectacular just for the community. And we thank you for raising the curtain and letting us come in here for a day, and really appreciate that. So with that, I'll turn it back to Peggy.
Great, thanks very much. I'll add my thanks as well. It's amazing to be in different spaces for our GMC member meetings, as we discussed quite a few months ago, as we were rethinking how the GMC would engage its members. One of the important things for us was where we engaged. And we found ourselves very abruptly changing our location when the University Club closed. But it's sort of the little, door closing, window opening kind of situation, because it forced us to find new spaces immediately, and the community's been incredibly generous in offering those spaces to us. So again, thanks to Right Height. And when we did our strategic plan, we identified infrastructure as one of the important areas not to lose sight of. It was very quick, people very quickly were pointing to the fiscal strength of the city, public safety, education, those were coming up. And so we can't forget about infrastructure and everything infrastructure means. So today we heard a little bit more bricks and mortar infrastructure, But even in some of the discussions at our table and elsewhere, you could also hear the other kinds of infrastructure that make a community a community. So the 794 project discussion is an important one for the community. And if you want to engage more with the GMC on this, we invite you to reach out to Joel or to me, and stay tuned, you will be hearing from us as well. So before I adjourn, if you are attending the tour of Right Height, please stay where you are. Sarah from Right Height is going to tell us there she is over there. She's going to tell us what we're doing and where to go. So I will now adjourn the meeting and turn to today's giveaway. As any who's new to a GMC member meeting or hasn't been to one in a while, we have little giveaways at the end of the meeting as our shameless ploy to keep you here, but also to highlight areas in the community. And what better organization to highlight today than UPAF? So UPAF has generously donated 2 tickets to somebody here so that you can attend any show of your choosing from one of the UPAF organizations. And I'm happy to say that Jackie Hurd Barber, you have won these 2 tickets.